Hello one, and hello all, and welcome one more time here on your favorite channel, Farmers of Thought. Your host Maponga J, here on the African channel, where we are discussing African politics, African science, African medicine, African fashion, art, health, sports, entertainment, and everything else between. The whole idea is to get the African people talking about the African problems and finding those critical African solutions. Your host, Maponga J, broadcasting live from Harare, right here in Zimbabwe. On this 28th day of February 2024. I pick up this afternoon drive to report my safe arrival back on mainland, having learned quite a number of lessons when I was in the Caribbean space, with all the challenges that we went through, both the beautiful spaces, the celebration, and the tears that we suffered at the hands of our own brothers and sisters who are in the Caribbean. And by no ways and no means are the struggles of the Caribbean by any chance different from the struggles of Africa as a whole. We here on the continent, we are also still required to get visas from one river to another river, from one country to another country. Africa, since it was divided into the colonial boundaries, the colonial boundaries came with the colonial languages to create on the African continent the Francophones. Those are the countries that were colonized by the French, the Portugal also colonized some countries. Germany also colonized some certain countries. And the British, the Anglo-Saxons, also colonized some certain countries. And so therefore Africa is not just divided amongst the Africans, but it is also divided amongst the Europeans. And the wars, the segregation, the division of the Europeans were filtered to become the wars of the African. We know as long far back as we can remember, that the British and the French have never been friends to each other. The French are undermined by the British, and the British undermine the French, calling each other dogs and frogs. And these divisions, segregations, have been filtered into the continent. That if you were colonized by the British, you are also supposed to hate the French the same way the British hate the French. And if you were colonized by the French, you are supposed to hate the British the way the French hate the British. And before you realize it, we are fighting battles that do not belong to us. World War I and World War II set up these European wars, which have filtered themselves into the African continent. Therefore, when we are talking about the unification of the Caribbean. We are also in the same breath talking about the unification of Africa. And therefore, the Caribbean and those on mainland, they all must say in one voice, we are Africans. So Dr. Small and Dr. Lumumba and Dr. Susan Tata came up with a new slogan a few days ago, which says, we are Africans. So I think going forward, if someone asks me, which country do you come from? We all need to start say, I am from Africa. Because as long as we still talk along the borders of Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, Somalia, Ghana, Bissau, Nigeria, Algeria, Ethiopia, South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, we are still falling in the same trap of glorifying the very same colonial borders that divide us. Therefore, we should start off by just making it. I mean, you are in New York City, and then you meet this American bigoted person who asks you, "Oh, where are you from?" Then you say, "I'm from Africa." And they say, "Oh, do you know I have a friend who comes from Ghana? Do you know him?" Right? Okay. If you know Africa like I do, and you tell someone that you are from Zimbabwe, or you tell someone that you are from Mozambique, and they are asking you about a friend that they have who is coming from Ghana. Now, it already tells you the amount of ignorance that is in that headspace. That for them to think that Ghana and Zambia, Nigeria and Lesotho are like a stone throw away from each other already tells you the amount of ignorance that is harbored in those kind of minds. So maybe going forward, we need to firstly refuse that we are not Zimbabweans, we are not Zambians, we are not Malawians, because these were Rhodesians, and the Rhodesians are a product of Cecil John Rhodes, who then calls these places after his own name. And by saying we are Rhodesians or we are Zimbabweans, we are allowing these tribal theories to supersede our national identity. Our national identity is African. You are not Zambian, you are not Zimbabwean, you are not South African, you are African. Because Africa is one big country which makes it into a continent. And I would like to, maybe just for today, to pick up one element of that complex African history with thousands of languages which have been colonially divided into tribes, but is a nation. Africa is not a country. Africa is a nation. It's a nation. So you pick up one particular, family group called the Tongas. Tonga. The word Tonga in Shona, it means rule, or it means to govern. But it also comes to mean a clan called the Tongas. The Tongas are found between Zimbabwe and Zambia. They are also found in Mozambique, and they are also found in the lower sides towards the borderlines of Malawi. So just along the Great Zambezi Escarpment, you will find a nation or a clan by the name of the Tongas. Now, this group of people called the Tongas will, by the time you get into South Africa, you have a group called the Tsongas. Now, I want you to take note of this as I move on this presentation today, that language remains sacred to us. And if you just remove the blinkers of political colonial history and open up your mind to hear how language connects us together, you will find that we are actually one people. So you have the Tonga people. These are the Tongas who are found in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, in Mozambique, and also found in Malawi. But in South Africa, they are identified as Tsonga. Now, if you remove the S on the Tsonga, the Tonga becomes part of the Tsonga. So what South Africans will actually be calling Shanganes, they're actually Tsongas. And Tsonga is Tonga with an S. Then you go into the Pacific, you will find the Tongas are there in the Pacific Islands. And you get into the Indian Ocean, you'll find also the Tongas are there. And you'll also find a drum, a conga, a tonga, you can toka. And this speaks of the etymological wealth of connectivity of the Africans just on language. And this language, though it varies now from one clan to another clan, that the Tongas look at it somewhere, the Mozambican Tongas look at it another way, the Malawian Tongas look at it, the Zimbabwean the Zambian Tongas. But the name itself will, those who have done Hebrew and Greek, and I see my young man is here, those who have done Hebrew and Greek, you will begin to appreciate the issue of etymology and how language actually, you're able to find the root word of every word. If you should find a word like Luo, Lueste, Luesestai, Luengizomai, the word that remains at the bottom there is Luo, which means, I write, I speak, I do whatever. So even if you're supposed to talk about, how words begin to duplicate themselves, I lose. Yeah, that's Luo, Lueste, I lose. Yeah, that's Luo, Lueste. So you look at the Hebrew word, the way it is twined, and then you're able to see that this word has something that is in common, like musika, the musika, which is the traditional Zimbabwean thing for making pap. So musika ana, musika ano, musika rudzi, musika. You see that the common repetition of that musika, Zulu is Amazulu, Uzulu, Bamboo Zulu, but still you hear the Zulu seems to repeat itself. And this is a unique, very unique and interesting item in terms of African etymological language, that when the root is consistent, it can multiply itself into nouns, into pronouns, into adjectives, into verbs, into adverbs, but still the root word remains central. So if you have to look at the word Tonga, Tsonga, Tsonga, Toka, then you'll notice that the root word remains the same. So I want to submit that, is it possible that the drum we call the Tonga or the Toka in the Pacific, the Tonga tribe in the Pacific, the Tonga tribes or clans in Zambia, in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, the Tsonga in South Africa, could actually mean, in historical setting, these clans are actually connected on the basis of their own cultural connectivity. Now you begin to look at the cultures of poking the nose, the cultures of tattoos, the way they dance. And those of you who want to study, you compare their clothes, you compare their cosmology, their belief system, and you begin to look at this thing very closely. You begin to see the migration patterns that the Tongas of Zambia, who are the custodians of Mosiatunya, which is the Nyami and the Great Kariba River. Is it possible that the Tongas of Zambia, because they lived along the Great Zambezi River, it's a what do you call it? It's a thesis statement. So it stands to be disapproved or to be challenged. Is it possible that the Tongas of Zambia, because that's where you find the greatest number of this clan situated on the face of the earth, is it possible that the Tongas of Zambia, because they lived along the river Zambezi, they could have moved from Zambia, known Zambia now, or Congo, along the Zambezi to end up influencing the Cabora Bassa, which is Malawi, influencing Mozambique, into the Indian Ocean. And in time immemorial, they could have moved over into the Indian Ocean, and they could have moved over on the other side into the Pacific Ocean. Their drum is the Tonga drum. They can also be found amongst the Tongas, as they are Tongas, as some are known as Shanganis, and etc. These are the kind of conversation. So that when a South African Tonga is killing a Zambian Tonga, and a Zambian Tonga thinks that he is superior to a Pacific Tonga, I wonder if you people can begin to hear that our language actually unites us more than our theories and our religion. Because even if our languages vary because of ethnological, geographical influences, but when you listen, what is the difference between a Zambian Tonga and a Zimbabwean Tonga? What is the difference between a Zimbabwean Tonga and a Malawian Tonga? What is the difference between a Malawian Tonga and a Mozambican Tonga? What is the difference between a Mozambican Tonga and a South African Tsonga, also known as Shangan? And what's the difference between these African Ongas, Tongas with the Pacific Tongas? So the Tonga speaks of knowledge of healing, wisdom, and governance, and the Tonga rule and govern with wisdom and with knowledge. Therefore, in language, you find that even if our cultural practice in the modern generation and centuries can vary, but etymologically, historically, all the Onga. Okay, that's another one that is just arriving now. Tonga means govern, but Onga means look after, heal, and Nga is knowledge of healing. So Onga, that's now Zulu. Onga also means the one who is leading. Onga meli, umonga meli. Onga means look after it carefully with tenderness. Umonga, umongi kazi speaks of the nurse. Umongiwa, the one who is being looked after. Ongayo, the one who, so this Onga, Tonga, Onga, Tsonga becomes the bread in Zulu that we eat is Tsonga. Tsonga means to tie up, stitch up together and keep it together. Sona in Shona. Oh, the language becomes such a beautiful way in which we can actually understand our African way of doing things, our way of interpreting our own cosmology. So as you look at a nation, so you look at the Tonga, whose umbilical cord lies in the Mosiatunya, amongst the Nyami, and the Nyami, which is also Nyame, which is also Gainyame in Ghana, which means God. Nyame, Zame, which means the omnipotent one. So language is ever interesting, because then it tells you even what your schools will never teach you. Because language is the library where our ancestors have kept the knowledge. So you cannot tell me that you don't understand when the Ghanaian says Gainyame, and the Tonga says Nyame, and the Shona says Zame. You don't hear that this concept actually comes from the same etymology. So that when the Ghanaian expresses himself to Gainyame, the all-knowing omnipotent, and the Tonga speaks about Nyami, the one who looks after us when everything else has failed. There's the big serpent, the god of the waters and of the skies, who causes it to rain. And the Shona then says, this is Zame, the unending belt that ties up the whole world. And this belt could be the snake of the water, the snake of the skies, and the omnipotent one in Ghana. And maybe in the distant past, these tribes, the Ghanaians and the Tongas and the Zimbabweans and the Zulus, Uzame, used to be in one space. Because there's no way you can have these languages thousands of kilometers away from each other, and yet they're still able to speak to each other. And hence, thank you, my brother, Fabrice Monga, Onga. He's also telling me about Congo, Ongo. And you begin to see this etymological fusion of African languages. So I remember I might take a few days and pick up a few of these African, genealogies in terms of their connections. I don't know everything. I'll share the little that I know. I'm well versed, maybe in as much as the southern history is concerned. So today we started off with the Tongas. We'll see how far we go. We might pick up the Shonas. We might pick up the Tswanas. We might pick up the Ndeveles and the Zulus. We might pick up the Lozis and the Lozwi, Roji and stuff. And you can tell me that Lozi, Roji, Leza, Lezwa, and you look at those words, how the language of the Lozis in Zambia and the Northern Sutus and the Pedis and the Tswanas and the Basutus, the language is the same. And yet you think that you are in different countries, but your etymologically your languages are actually linked up together. The Ndeveles in Zimbabwe, the Ndeveles in Mpumalanga, the Zulus in KwaZulu-Natal, and the Ngonis and the Xhosas. You can hear each other. And you think that you are different nations. But the root words of your language remains connected. These are the things we need to start talking about. The Chichewas in Malawi, in Zambia, into parts of Tanzania, Nyanja, Kiswahili. So there's more that unites us etymologically. And today we're looking at Onga, Congo, Onga, Tonga, and Tsonga. And when you come even to the deeper side of Tonga, which means to rule, also means, Tonga. Tongo in Zulu now means the dreams, the visions of the ancestors. Tongo, the shadows of the night, which whispers knowledge from the previous generations. Amatongo, the one who speaks to us from the previous times. Itongo. Now Tonga, Tongo. You hear that? You hear that? Tonga, Tongo. So, mommy, when the Zulus are beginning to talk about the Tongas, the closest they can hear about Amatonga is close to them when they hear the Tongo. Amatongo. These are dreams and visions. And therefore, we need to become students of language so that our philosophical perception of our cosmology and hegemony could be interred in congruence with our previous cosmological understanding as to how our ancestors actually interpreted our reality. So Tonga rule, Tonga a clan, Amatongo the ancestors. Then when you sleep, saying Banjwe, Yubutongo, Now, you hear that part now. Ubutongo is a state of falling asleep. And when you fall asleep, you are in the land of Amatongo. Amatongo are the Tongas. They rule and govern. The world of the conscious is governed by the world of Amatongo, the world of unconsciousness within a conscious body, when you can access information beyond your comprehension. In the world of dreams and visions, are we able to perceive the world of the living? So Tonga is not just Tonga. It comes as a word. Tonga, Tonga, Onga, Nga, knowledge. Obutongo, go, go. Amatongo. Oh, the list can go on, and you just enjoy language, and you are able to experience the beautiful part of that which unites the African people. So today, we thought we would consider Amatonga, Tonga, Tongo, Obutongo, Onga, and the connection between the Tsonga, Tonga, Toka, Tonga, and languages can vary, but in the variety of language, we still find the common ancestry of Matongo. And then when you come to Shona, Matongo means the old homes we used to live in. We are no longer there. So if you used to build your house over here, and then your family moves and you go somewhere else, and the old houses get dilapidated and they are finished and etc., the Karanga then says, Todzokera kumatongo, Matongo. So Matongo in Shona are buildings where we used to live in the previous life. But in Zulu, Matongo means the ancestors and the previous spirits of the past. Tonga, Matongo, Ubutongo. Sleep, therefore, is accessing Matonga, who used to live Kumatongo. I just wish we can go to town and appreciate. These are the ruins. Yes, you're right, Mr. Sega. Matongo. Yeah, the ruins, background, where we used to live. And Kumatongo. No kuna Matonga. Matonga. Ubutongo. In sleep, we access Matongo. We activate ancient, previous ruins of our memories to remind us what happened to us before we got here. Tongo, Atonga, Matongo, Wutongo, Tonga, Toka. Connectivity of African language systems. And I can't say it much. You in Lingala, I see someone in Lingala there, Bonaventure, telling me Matonge. They call it Matonge in Lingala. Superior logic, long live my leader until we are back again on the kingdoms. Zizisayim, Zizisi, Sebastian, Marisha, thank you very much. Katonga, in Katonga, in Lingala, they call it Katonga. Matopa. Mashupi. I don't know what language is that, Lisepe. That could be either Tswana or northern Sutu. Peace and intelligence. My greetings to all of you. I'm sorry I can't read all your comments there. It has been a wonderful, wonderful moment. But before you begin to call another person a foreigner, verify your information, verify your knowledge base. And you may find that you are speaking out of ignorance to insult people that are directly linked up to you. So whether you are a Tonga or you are a Tsonga, remember, or you are a Tonga from Mozambique, or you are a Tonga from Chichewa, and yes, in Chichewa, they call it Kumatongwe, Kumatongwe. Yeah, how beautiful those sounds. Matongo, Matongo, Katongwe. Yeah, and it just links up, right? So before you insult people and call them names, before you tell them, hey, you are from Malawi, hey, me, I'm from Zambia, hey, me, I'm from South Africa, and what are you? Hey, I'm Tonga. What are you? I'm Tsonga. What are you? I'm Tonga also. And we take around our small little passports and we think that we are divided. And in Kiswahili, kuongia, kuonga. You can still see that word there. You still have onga right there. The word is kuongia in Kiswahili. And it's still kuongia, ukuonga, utonga, matsonga, ukondla. NgesiZulu ke ukondla, ukonga, konga, nursing. And yeah, I thought I would share some of that small little knowledge with you. Mutwale afternoon from Solwezi. I bring you greetings, my honorable. And yeah, don't segregate each other. Whether you are in Malawi, you are in Zambia, you are in Mozambique, you are in South Africa, you are in Zimbabwe. If you hear the word Tsonga, onga, Tonga, Obutongo. So even when the Zulus are talking, amen, saying Patwe Obutongo, they're already admitting their connectivity to the Ongas, the Tongos, the Tongas. Yeah, the Tongas. And then custodians of Nga knowledge, the Tongas, the rulers of Amatongo, Ubutongo. As we sleep, we remember Matongo, Matonga. I'll stop there for today, and you can also enjoy the rhymes of language. And sometimes when you hear these things being spoken, your ears might not need to remember it, but your spirit will be able to connect with exactly what we are saying. And be blessed and live well in abundance of health and life. Let's learn to respect each other. We are one people. We have been divided by passports, by rivers, and sometimes even by languages. But when you listen carefully to the voices of Amatongo, Obutongo, Ongayo, the ones who look after us and nurse us in language, you still find that this language that preserves even the little bit of information that has been left after thousands of years of separation. These languages still echo our connectivity to each other. So how can a Zulu say they are not related to a Tonga when they believe in Amatongo? That's a nice one, yeah. You can't say, hey, these Mashangani are from Zambia. I'm not related to them. Yet in the evening, usemsamo ukuluma na Matongo, and Amatongo ngamatonga, Amatonga. Hey, ngilaba sebutongweni, and abasebutongweni yibona abasongayo. Then how do you get lost in a roundabout? Yes, thank you very much. Someone has picked it up there. Untabi. Even my name, Maponga, Maponga. Oh, this just gets very interesting. And when this door of information opens up in your mind, something that almost borders on madness, because the amount of information that floods in your mind and tickles your nerves, you don't know where to touch and what to leave. But all of a sudden, some things that I never understood, they make so much sense that to even engage with people who are working on the low vibration of national politics, I find that it becomes a waste of time. A waste of time. And the great king of Amazulu, thank you, Kaya Mvelase, Sibabiza, Onga Ngezwe. That is now the Zulu. When they are acknowledging their king, they call them Onga Ngezwe. The one who is like the world in totality, but the one Onga Ilizwe, the one who looks after the entire nation. So Onga Ngezwe, kuyisitakazelo senkosi yakwaZulu. Niyavuma yini ukuthi Onga Ngezwe, Onga unobuthongo bamathongo, uhlobene namatonga. Embo, nxa sithi Embo iqala ngase Sese Island, kusho ukuthi as we're traveling around, this connectivity of clans remains incubated in various clans that we came in contact with. And I think with those few words, I would want to stop my conversation for today and just say, please study your language, enjoy your African languages. I know I still feel very bad to be speaking to you in English. Sometimes I just feel like giving up speaking in English and speaking in Shona, but I will lose many of you. I'll only remain speaking to a smaller group of people on the African continent and beyond. But for the sake of knowledge, for the sake of teaching, let's use this language to our advantage. But by no means am I proud to be sharing such sacred knowledge and information in the foreign language. It will have been very nice. Ndeno chikureketa nechikaranga nichitini vatonga vokwedu ndo vatongi vatonga vokumatongo ndo voho vatakabatana navo kutonga novutongi hunobva kumatongo ndo kuno vutongo ndo kune dzidziso yazuro inotipa njere dzanhasi. Saka pakufambidzana in our midst of our movement as Africans tinofanira kuziva kuti kwatinobva kumatongo, where we are coming from our ancestral ground, we are all coming from a common background. Tombeta chigume kuti yako wafa chirega ndifuratire vakomana ranhasiravira tovuchira mavoko vana chigara mahwe matanda anovora zvibwe zvitedza zvinokwigwa navana mamwari pedo vanotamba nazvo mutambo uri pacho uri paruware hwirameti yaso zvichiramba kusesera mbona ngokuba vane mazha kumagaro tombodududzira vana vanodhumbana nanhopara ndimana zvibwe zvitedza zvinokwigwa navana mamwari pedo vanotamba nazvo hwirameti yasvosve chirega ndimbofuratira ranhasiravira tozotaura zvemwe musi tombo chinjika mashoko tomboisa zvitanda pasi tinotenda ranhasiravira. Don't worry my beloved brother Andile Sam, and you are swearing you are swearing at me calling me Futsek bastard. Thank you very much for introducing us to your mother, honorable I'm even calling you honorable Andile Sam. Futsek, you hate bastard. I don't know if I know you, you don't know me, and to speak like that, it just tells us which kind of a home you are coming from. And thank you very much for such an elaborate introduction to your mother and father who brought you into this life. But I hope when you go to sleep tonight, amatongo nobutongo buzokukhumbuza matongo. I thank you. Have yourself a wonderful day. Don't do what I won't do, but if you do it better.